around here, the best Fridays in all of football, right here, right now, with this guy, Coach Urban Meyer. Coach, good morning to you. How you doing? And another weekend coming up with some good football.
I mean, some gigantic games this week, and I'm doing good and good to be with you as always.
Yeah, I have so much to ask you about. I know it's not Florida Georgia week, but anytime it hits October, it's Florida Georgia week around here, as you know. And as I wrote this morning, that this is a 2 week festival that starts with the open date, and Georgia fans come down here and fled the beaches and stuff, and they celebrate more than Gator fans. You have had many, many contests there with these guys. According to my records, you lost one time. Today, we'll get into that game and talk about cause and effect, right? What's Newton's law? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, that happened in 2007 and 2008. Let's talk about it right now. I mean, the one blemish on your record against Georgia was 2007. Talk about that game, how they flooded the field, and how you avoided a fist fight. I'll never know. Go back in time.
Yeah, well, 2000, I was hired in '05, and a guy named Steve Spurrier made this rivalry almost unbearable for a Florida coach. I hated the rivalry. Uh, I mean, I loved it after it was over and after we won and the bus ride home, but the pressure was immense. It was because of one guy. It was Steve Spurrier. I think only lost one time to him. He made that a red letter game, which is a rivalry, big rivalry game. The old Gators. This is the rivalry. Florida State's relatively new. Tennessee is, the first usually the beginning of the SEC East battle, but this one digs deep. And the old Gators that I would talk to, they would always talk about Georgia, and so there was a lot of pressure. And by the way, Georgia usually had the best players in the country. The recruiting area that Georgia has is unmatched, in my opinion. That's great high school coaching in the state of Georgia. And so we beat them in '05. We beat them in '05. We shouldn't have won. We weren't very good, but we found a way to win at the end of the game. Changed our offense a little bit. '06 was our national championship year, and we handled them pretty good. And then '07, something happened, and they, the head coach, Mark Richt, whatever he said, I remember he saying to do something. Regardless, 80 players ran on the field, danced, taunted, and one of the most disrespectful things I've ever seen on a football field that was directed by the staff. And to say I was angry, and it showed you a little bit of what kind of team we had. We were a soft team, especially on defense. Any other team I've ever coached, that would have been some guys going to jail. I mean, that would have been you imagine that '08 team if someone did that,
No.
or a championship level team, you won't put up with that. And I see sometimes I even see the videos of it still, and I see the guys waving and pointing in our guy's face, and so our guys, it was 30 yards of penalties on that, and they went on to win the game. They had great players, no Sean Marino and Green, the receiver, and Stafford, the quarterback. They had a great defense, and they won the game. And then for 365 days, we brainwashed the team to defend their families that day, and we did in Jacksonville.
Well, there was a piece that came out saying allegedly that Vince Dooley had talked to Mark Rick saying, get a penalty, do something, do something. Because, Mark Rick, congratulations, by the way, Coach Rick just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Good for him. But he was such a nice guy to Georgia fans. They wanted him to do something mean and nasty. And they did it. And how you held back, I'll never know. And here's the most amazing thing. During that time, I was with you a lot because we were working on the book, 2007. That whole year working the book, I kept asking you, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You wouldn't tell me anything. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And so the day came uh, to to pay the fiddler, as they say. 2008 team, as you said, wasn't taking it, and they didn't take it. And starting with the opening kickoff, what happened to No Sean Marino, and what happened that day when you call it? If you'd have had 10 timeouts, you'd have called them all.
Yeah, I was really concerned about the team because we had type A's now. You're talking about Brandon Spikes, Stamper, Carlos Dunlap, Ahmad Black, Major Wright, Joe Hayden, those cats now, and the Pouncies. That same thing would have happened again. I told you it would have been, they would have had to stop the game. That would have never happened. And so my biggest concern was that they were going to do something. But we had such a good culture, such a good belief on that team that our players did nothing other than play really well. And it was the most prepared team I've ever coached. It was the most prepared staff, team, players. I remember walking down to our pregame meal, and it's first time in my only time. As I walked in, this is you're 4 hours before the game, and I walk in that room, and they all stand up and are cheering each other on, and this is 4 hours before the game. And I looked at Charlie Strong, and he looked at me and he said, "Coach, we're getting ready to rip this team apart." And they, from the first play of the game until the end of the game, it was a thorough beating by, once again, 3 first-round draft picks they had on offense. And when Brandon Spikes told our team what he was going to do, and he did it, I love it. In the Swamp Games, he talked about it. So, yeah, that was a complete beatdown.
It was, and he just buried him on that tackle, Brendan. You remember you were there. That was a classic form tackle if I ever saw. And then laid on top of him, and according to Swamp Kings, told him what the day was going to be like, didn't he?
Yeah. And then at the
it
end
was
of the
fun.
game,
Sorry, go ahead, Coach.
and then at the end of the game, Tebow and I would have our moments, and I said, Tim, like, where's a timeout about something, a TV timeout? And I put my arm around Tim, and we were, half the Georgia fans had already left, and I said, Tim, I had a dream about this, and what is our payback going to be? I want you to take a snap, the next snap here, take a step, and you throw that up in the stands and at a Georgia fan. And he goes, "Okay, I'll do it." And I said, "No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that." But at the end of the game, I was, the game's winding down, and Florida, the Gator Nation is having a ball. Our players having a ball. A guy named Emmanuel Moody was running the ball for us. And sure enough, he gets a first down, and I see the official stop the clock. And I looked up, and we had a couple timeouts, and there's under a minute, and I burned the timeout. And no one knew what I was doing at first. I didn't say anything to anybody. And the official looked at me and goes, "Timeout." I said, "Timeout." And then there's like 20 seconds left. We run it again, and I called timeout. Then everybody knew what was going on.
Take a look at that scoreboard, right, Coach? Take a look at that scoreboard.
One last look.
And you guys, not many people know I called a third timeout too, but we didn't have one. And the official, the linesman right next to me, I said, "Hey, timeout." And he goes, "Coach, you don't." He started laughing. He goes, "You don't have any left." And I said, "Call it anyway."
Great
It was
days
fun.
there.
It was fun listening to you and Brandon talk about that in Gainesville a couple weeks ago, and then listening to Brandon talk about the hit on Noshawn, which was having him sort of go through it. And he was saying, for an entire year, I've been thinking about this one moment, and he said, I think I called him everything in the book when he had him on the ground there.
I remember my daughters that wanted to ask him, say, "Dad, what was he saying?" I said, "Move on. You don't want to."
You don't want to know.
Yeah, X-rated for sure. Okay, it's such great memories, and it's hard to. Just one more thing on this. We'll talk about next week. Can you somehow compare? I know it's impossible. Ohio State, Michigan with Florida, Georgia.
Yeah, I think it's very relative. That's it's usually what makes Ohio State Wolverine rivalry. First of all, I grew up in it, but really the championship goes through those two teams almost every year. And right now, Georgia is the kingpin of the SEC. Florida was the kingpin, Alabama, but the SEC East historically goes through that game, and that's, I think, one of the reasons the rivalry is so good. It's the one thing that makes it very unique and awesome, and I hope it never changes. It's played in a neutral site where it's 50-50, red and black, orange and blue. And I told you I really despised the rivalry because it was so hard on you as a coach. But now that I reflect back, also it's on par with Ohio State Wolverines. I think obviously the Ohio State Wolverine game is so old, and it's had such an impact on national championships and et cetera over the years. Florida was relatively, it's always been a great rivalry, but Florida really wasn't that good until Spurrier. It still shocks me to this day that the Gators won their first SEC championship in '91.
Yeah, they actually won in 80. They won in '84. They couldn't keep it. They actually won the national championship in '84, but they won yeah, you're right.
So they didn't win it in '84.
Right.
If you're winning it not the right way, on the wall, it says 1991, and it blows my mind.
I lived at Coach all those years. I can tell you about it back in the 50s and 60s. Well, it's good stuff, and it's always great to have a historical reference, one that people can tell you where they were when those games were played, what happened. They remember every little moment of it, from Run Lindsay, whatever, etc. So, like you say, you didn't love it when you're in it, but you love it looking back at it now because you have a phenomenal record. Let's talk about the Big Ten, Coach, for a second. I don't want to keep you tied up here. Uh, 3 top 10 teams in the Big Ten, all right? And now they're going to play each other. And with this weekend, Penn State, Ohio State, that's not really a rivalry, but is it?
It's Penn State's rivalry. Penn State, it's amazing, really doesn't have that rival. It used to be Pitt and maybe West Virginia when they were in the other conference, but Ohio State has taken on that. There's been incredible games. I mean, every game we've had with them. I mean, I think I had 2 overtimes with them, and we lost one. And I mean, it's a great place to go play really hard. But it's become a rivalry in a sense here. This is the best Penn State team, I think, that I've seen in 15 years. They're really good on both sides, really well coached, great talent. But this is Coach Franklin's best team, I think. Ohio State's going to have their hands full. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But it's a play-in. The best division right now in college football is the Big Ten East. Yeah. And the 3 big dogs, they're really good. I mean, sometimes you see teams that really are ranked high. The Wolverines have played a really soft schedule, and actually Penn State has as well. But on videotape, those are really, really good teams.
Is that whiteout night?
No, we're in Columbus.
Oh, in Columbus. Okay.
The big noon. It's a noon.
Okay. Oh, it's just all right. So, looking around the schedule, we've talked about the SEC having a so-called down year, but they play each other, and when that team, whoever it is, Alabama, Georgia, that team is going to have to be in the Final Four, I would think. But it is kind of an off year. Let's talk about Tennessee, Alabama. A lot of people are talking about Tennessee having a chance to beat Bama. Maybe they do. I don't see that happening. In my opinion, Alabama's defense is coming back now, and their quarterback, as you said, it's like having Percy or Harvard to play quarterback. In that game, what kind of chance does Tennessee have of beating Alabama?
Well, ironically, I was asked to go speak at the Knoxville Quarterback Club, and the guy was great, and he kept asking me, and finally I said, okay, I'll go do it. And Shelly, she said, "You're going where?" And I said, "Knoxville." She said, "Don't eat anything, don't drink anything. Keep your eyes pointed straight ahead." But they were awesome. We had a great time. I might do it again because they were so fun to be around, and the respect I have for Tennessee and the history. But I still think, I made a comment about Alabama a couple weeks ago. I think, I said, don't count them out. And then I watched that Arkansas game. They're still not the Alabama team. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying talent, and I'm not saying coaching. They're still not there yet. Mm-hmm. There's still something missing, that they don't have the ridiculous, gaudy numbers like they usually do this time of year. So can they be beat? Yes, they can be beat. Tennessee's got to play better in a lot of areas. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about their quarterback situation. Milton's so talented, but if he doesn't take care of the ball, Alabama will win by 2 scores. If he takes care of the ball, I think this will be a 1-score game.
Fair enough, yeah. So let's get to players. When you lose a superstar player, you lost Tim Tebow in Lexington to a horrible incident where he has concussion, and it was a rough couple of weeks there for you. Now, all of a sudden, Georgia, who's got everything going their way except for a few off-the-field deals, they lose their superstar tight end. Brock Bowers is one of the greatest players I've ever seen, not playing in that game now. I know it's a little too early to start making predictions, but I'm looking at that team thinking, Carson Beck needs that bailout guy. He's not experienced enough to get full reads. How much of that going to affect him? And this is a 23-point game, by the way, right now. I think it dropped to about 16 or 17. You've been in this game before. Weird things happen. Am I just dreaming here, or is the HBC right when he says Florida has a puncher's chance?
Yeah, they certainly do. And when you lose a player of that magnitude, a Percy Harvin, a Tim Tebow, because this guy's that good. I think he's a Heisman candidate. He's one of the best players I've ever seen. A do-it-all guy. And they do great, by the way. Their offensive staff at Georgia does a heck of a job. getting him the ball. But you lose a guy like that, the residual effect permeates the entire team. You know, when I was at Ohio State, we lost a guy by the name of Nick Bosa. I still believe we would have won the national championship. That's how good he was. And our defense really struggled. And you can say, well, it was only one guy. No, don't say that. Not when they're that good a player. Because those kind of players make everyone else better too. So I think that's a game changer for Georgia.
Okay.
Obviously, we won without Percy Harvin. But if you really study those games, people picked up the slack. Guys like David Nelson, who no one knew, scores a touchdown against Georgia and then also in the national championship game. So people are going to have to step up.
They've got good players. They've got a 5-star guy that steps in. I guess he was Culp. And there's 2 other really good players. But still, a quarterback, Irwin, looking for that safety valve. That guy who is always – he knows he can get to him late in the game. He'll get open. And so I just wonder – and Carson Beck's not – that experience. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but I think it might change.
Right on it. You're right on it.
Okay, thank you for that. So, all right. So, Brenden, go ahead if you have a question. But I was just good with the coach about any other games that catch your fancy. We got a game at Duke and Florida State, FSU now. Coach, I've always subscribed to the theory that teams at this time of year either get better or worse. So which one is happening to Florida State? I mean, they look really good.
The only thing I'd say, it's not just time of year; it's always.
Yeah.
You know, your game one. You know, I've heard someone say, "Well, the biggest improvements between game 1 and game 2." You know, those are all great sayings. The reality is, you're always trying to improve. And Florida State, I think, is a legitimate playoff contender. I think that guy, Coach Norvell, should be a candidate for Coach of the Year because what he took over and what that team looks like now, it's phenomenal. It's recruiting, it's culture. I met him for the first time, I believe this summer. In the spring, I met him, and I really like the guy. But as much as it pains as a Gator to say it, Florida State is legit. But I think Duke, that coach is another coach. These are 2 Coach of the Year candidates. When you watch both these teams play, really well-coached teams. I think Florida State wins, but the coach at Duke has done a hell of a job too.
Is Mike Norvell kin to you? Because he looks like you. Have people told you? Mike Norvell looks like you. Norvell looks like you. I mean, I've had people tell me that.
Looks like me.
Yeah. I've heard people tell me that.
He's 30 years younger than me, buddy.
Well, take it, man. What do you do? Take it, yeah, for sure. All right, so Brenden, everything you want to ask Coach before we let him get back to his regular scheduled program?
Yeah, I know you're busy, Coach. We always appreciate your time. I just in a bye week like this, especially before a big game. I know you were in the past when you talked about how you scheduled things out very specifically, have something to do each day. I don't want to speak for you, but that was sort of in the book. Could you just tell me what you find is maybe it was a secret to a success there? How do you prepare in a bye week when you've had such a up and down season and you have such a big game ahead like Florida Georgia?
Yeah, my first year we were a soft team, especially on offense at Florida, and so the bye week before Georgia, we installed a new offense. We installed a bunch of new parts of our offense, and our offense line. We just were a soft team, and we tried to become unsoft. And the only way I knew how to get unsoft is we went inside drill, we went full pads for 4 days, and it was like training camp. And then we gave them 3 days off and went back at it again. The 08 team was a veteran team playing at a high level. I gave them as much time off as I possibly could. So there's no cookie cutter way of doing it. It depends on what kind of team you got. Florida right now, their offense line's got a long way to go. So I would imagine that they got after it this week in practice. Because the great thing about this game, you can wish all you want, but you only get better by working at it. And if you're not if you need to block and tackle better, once again, it's not all due respect to basketball, baseball, and all these other sports, which are great. But the game of football, there's only one way, and it's put on the shoulder pads and block people. If you're struggling tackling, you go out and tackle. There's no other way. And people who try to do it the other way, they fail. So I would imagine Florida's still in a learning phase. I would imagine they went at it pretty good this week.
Urban, a couple more for me and let you go. One of them is, I know you don't talk about coaches and whatever and criticize them, but this is something glaring here that we're looking at. The situation at Texas A&M, okay? Think about this. Kevin Sumlin had 3 straight 4-4 SEC seasons. Overall, 23-15, all right? Jimbo Fisher, last 3 years record, SEC 4-4, 2-6, 2-2. Jimbo's overall record for the last 3 seasons is currently 17-14, Urban. For all that money, that is unbelievable. How patient can a fan base be? And even with a big buyout, I mean, he's got to turn it around sooner. There's trouble out there in Texas.
Yeah, I've always thought Texas A&M, because I coached and I was down there twice. Actually, as a young coach, I coached against him at Ohio State. We played him in the Cotton Bowl. And I think Texas high school football is a lot like I said, Georgia, as good as there is. Matter of fact, we never missed on a player in the state of Texas. Every player we've ever recruited out of Texas ended up having a fine career. So they must be patient, because, that would not happen at Ohio State. That's not, in Florida, I think they've become a little bit more patient, after Spurrier. And, you have a, heck of a coach in Ron Zook, who was kind of, who I have a lot of respect for. They made a change. So there must be great patience. I don't know Texas A&M that well. I know they should have as good of players, and they had the #1 recruiting class. So there must be great patience down there. And that's all I can say. Jimbo Fisher is a national champion coach. He's proved he can do it. He's had a nice long career. But like you said, life in the big city is at a place like A&M, which once again, I don't know, but I know that you said that the record is 17-14.
17-14 in the SEC last 3 years.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There must be great patience down there.
Big buyout, coach. It's a big buyout.
Big buyout.
Yeah, I'd like to say patience, but it's probably yeah. So Urban, one more little thing. We've talked about this. I'm hopeful it's going to come about. Having you and Steve Spurrier together in the same room to talk about what you did and how you hated to lose. That's such an important legacy for Florida football. I think it's going to be fantastic if we can pull this off in the spring. You and Coach Spurrier out of Spurrier's open to some people, raise some money. Urban, are you still in for that?
I am. And last night I did it with Jim Tressel.
So
nice. we had a huge fundraiser for our cancer research fund that Shelley and I have, and it was at the restaurant we have up here, and it was packed with people, a bunch of former players. Our Big Noon crew was there, and so Coach Spurrier, we talked about it, and I already spoke to him on the phone. Buddy, I want you involved, your son involved. His restaurant's phenomenal, and let's do some good with it, raise some money, and I really look forward to doing that.
We're so excited about that. That's be off the charts. And yeah, that'll be fun, Brenda. We'll have a big night then and get our people out there from Gator Bait and all the fans, and gonna be a chance to raise some money. Urban, I have to ask you this every week. I'm under on contract. They require me. I know Shelley's answer.
My contract.
Yeah. Shelley's answer is, I know you still keep getting calls. I know people keep talking about you, number 1 on their list. Your name will not die. Keeps on. Have you even thought about it at all? Ever coaching again?
No. That's not going to happen. And life is really good right now. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and more importantly, my family is really enjoying the engagement and the time that we get to focus on something other than 3rd down and 6.
You look so content and happy, man. I tell you, doesn't he, Brendan? You look just as happy as I've ever seen you. Good for you. Good for Shelley to knocking some sense into your head. And as much as I think you'd be great coaching again, I care more about you as a person. So I'm glad to see you doing so well.
That's why we're good friends. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Urban, for doing the show. It's Best Fridays in Football every week right here, folks. Coach, have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, he officially came out and said that the other day.
No, he said it several times. I asked him.
No, but it was, I think it was yesterday. There was a report on it. I don't remember where I was reading it.
There's one every day almost. Yeah, everybody wants to know. His name is still on every list. Yeah,
I still think there's something there. Just the way that he talks about coaching. Sometimes you see that little twinkle in his eye. You wonder sometimes if it's something.
Never know. While we're here,
You
Brenden,
can only hope.
should we tell folks about what we're doing on Gator Bait and stuff?
Yeah, I was just going to remind everybody. First of all, make sure you hit that subscribe button down there in your bottom right screen. It's a YouTube button.
Free.
It's
It's
you just
free.
click. It's free right now. Click on that button, and it'll just say subscribe. Hit us up, smash it, whatever you got to do. But you get all these notifications when we go live and everything else. Plus, if you like Gators, which I think that you do if you're on this channel. We have a little special something called GatorBaitMedia.com. It is the #1 source for real journalism for real Gators. Guys like Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, Lauren Meadows. We got 2 young writers in Kyle Curtis and Matt Corderaro. Just a cast of thousands. Dan Bond and a lot of other guest writers that come in. We've got a fantastic photographer who gives us galleries of most home games.
Give it up for Chris Spears. Give it up for Chris Spears. Come on.
Yeah, Chris Spears. We post galleries in our mobile app. All sorts of great stuff there, and getting bigger. Plus, you can grab the Buddy Martin show there and watch it while you're perusing the site and reading other things. You can play it in the background, which is kind of a fun thing. We have a whole page built out right there called the Buddy Martin Show page. So we're really trying to launch more of our chat rooms. We've got daily blogs and articles. We do a newsletter that's magazine-like, and we're always expanding there. So all of we do there, we try to bring it over here, and really at the end of the day, that's what we do, isn't it, buddy?
It is. And by the way, next week, a huge week for everybody, including us. We're going to have our full gang there reporting. Check out, subscribe if you can. I'll read you this quote from Mike Griffith, who is the #1 Homer writer for Georgia. He writes about how great Georgia is, and they are. This is what he said yesterday regarding the change in things in Gainesville or in Jacksonville due to Brock Bowers' injury. What does it mean? It's on my column on Gator Bait right now. Quote, the championship hopes are really flickered. This is their Superman, no doubt about it. And they're going to need several guys to step up. Brock Bowers, you heard Urban say, it's a huge deal. What will it mean? Well, stay tuned all week. We'll tell you right here on the Buddy Martin Show and Best Fridays in Football and in GatorBaitMedia.com.
That's right. We will be off for the weekend, but we'll be back on Monday with the Buddy Martin Show, 9 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. You can't miss it. You will probably not be able to get it on Facebook next week. So head on over to YouTube, hit subscribe, and you will get notifications when we're live and we're there. So that pretty much wraps it up for us for the week. We say thanks to all of our guests and everything else. And of course, thanks to Coach Urban Meyer for joining us and spending time with us on his very Eddie, you have a busy weekend. I have a busy weekend. So we will catch up down the road.
All right, Brent, looking forward to it. Good job.
Good job. Have a good time, everybody. Have a good day. Have a blessed weekend. And as always, go Gators.